All right, so the crypto president has officially said we are going to have a reserve for Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, Sol, and XRP. ADA being, of course, Cardano. It'll be very interesting to see where this goes. I don't understand what we're doing. I don't know if we're actually buying them or holding them or whatnot. But again, looks like we are going to declare a crypto strategic reserve. On top of that, we have more and more people talking about the consumer. This is something I brought to you about a week ago. You can actually go look it up, where I said that President Trump is losing the consumer, kind of losing the messaging war. Mark Zandi said that the U.S. economy is gagging on haphazard economic policy in D.C. We have seen retail sales, manufacturing production, home sales, and real consumer spending all collapse. Yesterday, we talked about GDP Now, the Atlanta Fed, saying that Q1 GDP is not estimated to be 3.2% or 2.4%, but in reality, it's actually negative 1.5%. Again, remember, GDP Now is an up-to-date forecasting mechanism that is constantly taking in more and more information. The closer it gets to the end of the quarter, the more accurate it gets. And again, folks, this is to be expected. This is something you have heard on this channel a lot. If the consumer gets scared, they pull back. If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, this is not news to you. You should be able to predict this at this point. Again, if the consumer is scared, if the consumer is unsure, their natural reaction is to pull back. This week, we've got some very interesting earnings. Starting on Monday, we've got Sonova and Okta. Tuesday, we have Target, Best Buy, Nordstrom's, and Ross Stores. Wednesday, Foot Locker and LendingTree. And then Thursday, Broadcom, Gap, Costco, Macy's, and our friends at Velocity Mortgage. This week, folks, we are going to learn about what is going on with the consumer. We are going to learn perhaps about some Q4 and holiday sales. We are going to hear about, more importantly, the forecast. For me, none of these retailers I am interested in for what has happened. I am interested in what they say will happen. Again, will they take earnings down? Will they lower revenue expectations? This is frankly what I expect. I expect most retailers to say, hey, we are going to be conservative. I expect a lot of retailers to talk about tariffs and the potential ability to pass on price hikes or tariffs and the like. So it is going to be a very important week for retailers. Got a very interesting update about Austin, Texas. Shout out Lance Lambert at Resi Club Analytics. According to them, and also on Bloomberg, Bloomberg said rents have fallen 22% from the peak in 2023, so roughly 2 years ago. Again, how can that be? How can rents fall 22%, you ask? Well, Austin has successfully delivered 50,000 new units in 23 and 24. Folks, this is supply and demand 101. Again, in the pandemic, a lot of people rushed to Austin. Austin developers did what they did. They built 50,000 units. And now in Austin, you can get rent reductions. You can get move-in specials. You can, in fact, get 2 months free if you sign a 13-month or longer lease. That is how you can get a 22% reduction. Folks, I do want to highlight our school community. One rental at a time is growing. I want to thank Larry and Abel for joining. Again, folks, the school community is something I am very proud of. It is full of one rental at a time fans, over 350 people going the same direction. You get lots of free education. There's a $1,000 boot camp at level 3. There's some education on creative financing and cold calling and all of that stuff from Jason Pritchard, Ty, and others. Again, You also have upwards of 6 different mastermind groups that meet weekly that you can find one that fits your schedule. So again, folks, our school community is simply 67 pennies a day. It is certainly something you can afford and something, frankly, you need to join because you need to be in the right rooms with the right people talking about the right things. Avalon Bay, one of the largest multifamily operators in the country, is going on a buying spree. Avalon Bay says they plan to buy 8 apartment communities in Texas in the next 12 to 18 months. Folks, this is becoming a trend. We are seeing more and more of the big players say they are no longer pencils down, but they're actually making acquisitions. Again, we are seeing Class A trade, Class B and Class C, no bueno, not good. Frozen, bad debt, all of that. Inflation expectations, again, are running high. We actually had a reading I read over the weekend talking about 4%. Folks, if people are expecting inflation to go up 4%, that is not good. However, GDP now says we're going negative 1.5%. What does that mean? Well, stagflation. This is something we've talked about a few times on this channel. It is the boogeyman for the Federal Reserve. Why? Because their tools are imperfect. They can fight inflation or they can fight low growth. They can't fight both at the same time. They're going to raise rates to beat inflation, but they need to lower rates to grow the economy. You can't do both. Again, stagflation is becoming a real possibility. Don't know if you've seen this, but this was updated recently. The top 10% of earners, this is important, right? The top 10% of consumers. These folks make 250 grand or more a year. They now make up 50% of all spending. Think about that. The consumer is driving the economy. Just for comparison's sakes, because I always like to compare to what? In 2002, so what would that be, 23 years ago? The top 10% made up 40% of the spending. So again, it sounds a little scary when you hear the top 10% makes up 50%. But if you put it in context, they historically made up 40. So again, it is more. It is about 20% more. But it's not like the top 10% went from 15 to 50. It went from 40 to 50. You should always have context when you hear people talking about some of these scary numbers. Peter Schiff is actually out there talking about a Bitcoin is a digital gold. Folks, if you don't know, Peter Schiff has been a pretty anti-Bitcoiner. He did come out today and say that Bitcoin is digital gold and that, frankly, having a reserve of Bitcoin makes sense. But why are we having XRP or Sol or Cardano, one of those, ADA? Again, I think that is a reasonable request. Why were these, I don't know, let's call them altcoins added? I don't know. Let's talk about, again, consumer confidence. This is a big deal. Consumer confidence last week took a large drop, largest in the last 3 years. This could really drive home Q1 being the start of a recession. Remember, historically, we need 2 negative quarters of GDP growth. Q1, according to, again, the Atlanta Fed and GDP Now, is set up to be the first negative quarter. What will Q2 bring? Resi Club is out there telling us that active inventory is building in all 50 states. Yes, all 50 states. Now, we are not quite in a buyer's market in all 50 states, but it has been a long time since all 50 states have active inventory growing. And the last thing to talk about in the next 24 hours, we are going to figure out, is the threat of 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico real? Is the threat of a 25% tariff just yet another negotiation point? It is my belief, it is my guess that President Trump will once again delay these tariffs because he is hoping to get Canada and Mexico to layer tariffs on China. It is my belief that President Trump wants North America to declare, quote unquote, China the enemy, China to have more tariffs. I could be wrong. For all I know, Mexico and Canada tariffs go into effect in 24 hours. Cars get more expensive. Housing gets more expensive. Hey, we'll find out together in about 24 hours. Folks, I hope you have an amazing day. Like, subscribe, comment. I did try to record this outside, but it is just frankly too windy and not very visually pleasing. So we did this in the room. Take care of yourself. Have a wonderful day. Like, subscribe, comment. Later.